Hey bestie, it's time for your next session of Real Talk Friend Therapy with your favorite big sister auntie queen, Daysha Veronica. Hello. How is everybody doing? I am doing so much better than the last episode. My bestie Kendall literally reached out to me on the group chat and was like, girl, what is going on? I was going through it. My boyfriend and I kind of got into a really heated argument. And then on top of that, I've been going through it with my house. I will go into that a little later. It's summer, so it's been real hot. We were in the middle of a heat wave. I had a family member that I hadn't seen in a while that said some really fucked up shit to my face. And I don't know, am I listing everything? Oh, I got into a tiff with my boss at work. So life was lifing for real, but I'm in a much better place now, and I very much appreciated the checkup. I didn't even realize how much stuff that was I was going through in a 2-week period until I had to list it out. So that's why our friendships are important. They help us keep life in check and in perspective, and to realize that sometimes we're dealing with too much bullshit at once. But yeah, your girl is doing so much better. But all right, so let's talk about how my house is going left. Right quick. Homeownership. Let me tell, I love being a homeowner, but it is, again, not for the weak. And I'm getting a first-hand lesson in how home ownership is not for the weak. Or the broke either, for that matter. So, in April, my hot water heater needed to be replaced, and I have a home warranty, which is supposed to be another form of insurance. Now, okay, so what people don't tell you about insurance, homeowners insurance, is that homeowners insurance is only for everything basically on the outside of your house. And so for the inside of your house, so your plumbing, your electrical, what's the other stuff? Your refrigerator, washer, dryer, all of those things, you don't really have protection on those things unless you bought a warranty with those items. But a lot of the times you're buying homes that might come with these items. And so you can get what's called a home warranty to help protect those systems and things. So my home warranty tries to play me and is sorry, because it's a leak. If you look in your policy, we don't cover leaks for water heaters. And I'm like, but what you mean? They were basically they were if anything else had happened to the hot water heater besides a leak, then they would have replaced it cost free. But because it's a leak, they don't cover it. And I'm that's fucking nuts, because that's literally the only major reason why you would replace a hot water heater, unless it was defective. So I'm all right, me and my boyfriend, we came out of pocket to fix that. We came to terms with it. But now they got me all kinds of fucked up with this whole AC debacle, okay? They was coming at me with straight nonsense. And I had to let them know I am not the 1 or the 2 or even the 3, okay? Trying to have me come out of pocket thousands of dollars, but they're gonna cut me a check for $800. And we have central air. So anybody who has central air knows that $800 ain't about to do shit, because our unit is hella old. It is original to the house, so it's probably 20-something years old by now, and it's at the end of its lifespan. Baby girl gotta go. And of course, they don't want to pay for it. And I'm just I don't even know what the point of this is anymore. I feel you're supposed to be, the point of me paying you for this policy is so that you provide me with assurance when I need it. And the fact that you're making me fight you about getting money that I pay you to help me with fixing this shit is just beyond me. It's so funny. I called to cancel, and then that's when they wanted to be oh, but wait a minute. I think we can offer you some more money. And I'm just why do we got to do this though? Really? Because when I'm ready to cancel, I'm ready to cancel. And then here you come fucking with my feelings, getting me all confused about whether or not I really want to cancel. And I can't handle this. I don't have time for this. So I don't know how I feel about home warranties yet. I can't fully say I would recommend them based on my experience. But I will say the one thing that I did appreciate about them, especially if you're transitioning from apartment living to home living, is that, a lot of people will complain. It's oh, when something something happens, you have a landlord that you call, and the landlord will send someone out to come and fix it. And so it can be a little overwhelming when you're a homeowner because that responsibility is on you and you have to look up all these people and kind of vet it yourself. And so the thing that I did like about our home warranty is that if we were having an issue, I would just go put in a claim and then they would send a contractor out to come deal with the problem. And I'll say for us that they were pretty speedy, although you're typically not getting like same day service. And so I know that that's a big complaint for some people is that, you know, it might take your home warranty like a couple days before the person comes out to assess the problem. And, you know, when we're dealing with stuff like a heat wave, like you want like immediate, like same day service. So that can be a problem. But yeah, I mean, I liked the feeling of like not having the responsibility of looking for someone. I also feel like we've gotten cheaper quotes through our home warranty than if we did it on our own. Like with our hot water heater, we were talking to a plumber who was basically quoting us a lot more than we ended up paying because of the quote with the home warranty. But y'all, again, all of this is to say, homeownership is not for the weak, and it's essentially like having a second job. And if you are not somebody, like it's one of those things where I love owning a house because I love decorating, I love making my house a home, and I've always had a passion for real estate. But there's also so much more that comes with it than just decorating. And again, you have to be prepared for your home being a second job. This is why so many homes, like when you are shopping, they go into disrepair because people are like, oh, fuck this, because it's a second job and you're not getting any money from it. Like you're getting like theoretical money, hoping that like when you sell it, it sells for a good amount of money. But most of us aren't buying homes to sell them, right? You know, you're just kind of holding out for a long time without a paycheck. It's a lot. It's a lot. I still love it, but it's a lot. Moving on, for this week's episode, we're talking about why friendship matters. In episode 3, which is called What is Friendship, I gave us a framework for understanding what it is and how this context can better serve us in understanding the people in our life. But for this episode, I want to dig deeper into its importance for our growth and mental development with a professional. As I've mentioned in past episodes, in our modern world, friendship for many people has become this placeholder relationship that we use to hold us over until we get into a romantic relationship that will lead to us creating a family. But when we look at the history of this relationship and the immense value that others before us have regarded friendship with, it's just so crazy that we've gotten to this point. Last session, I gave some of the historical context for why friendship mattered in the ancient worlds. So this week, I wanted to have a licensed therapist come on to break down the value friendship brings us from a mental health perspective and to talk more about how we got to this place. I am so excited to introduce y'all to Bri and Angele. Y'all, I am so obsessed with saying her name, Bri and Jeff. It's like the perfect movie star name. Like, I would say she went into the wrong profession because of the star power of this name. But then when you hear her passion for mental health and her very soothing therapist voice, you're like, okay, I guess this is truly what you were meant to do. Bri is a licensed mental health professional, specifically a licensed professional clinical counselor who has worked in the helping professions for over a decade and specializes in working with religious trauma, neurodivergence, queer poly folks, those in the helping professions, and teenagers. She helps clients form a healthy self-image, strengthen their relationships, and heal from chronic stressors. Ever curious, Bri doesn't just talk to clients about these things, but reflects on them in her off time, researching topics relevant to her life and those she loves. She isn't just a psych nerd, though. She loves learning about healing across cultures and histories. And I love that she's been going strong with her besties from the last 5 years to 33 years. I know time isn't everything when it comes to friendships, but I will say that when I hear of people who still have healthy and happy relationships that span decades, it really does warm my heart. Bri is also a proud Scripsie like me. We both attended Scripps College, a women's college in Southern California, but sadly, we only briefly overlapped. Shout out to Megan, another Scripsie, for connecting us. All right, the moment y'all have been waiting for. And just a quick disclaimer, even though Bri is a licensed therapist, this conversation is by no means meant to be a substitute for therapy. But if you like what you hear and are interested in seeking out Bri's services, all that info will be available at the end of the episode and in the show notes. All right, y'all, here it is. My conversation with the amazing Bri and Angele. Bri, hello. I am so excited to have you here today. How are you doing?
Daysha. Thanks for having me. I'm doing great. You know, it's funny. I've been thinking a lot about friendships, so I've been really excited to come on here and be a guest with you. But otherwise, just making the best of work from home life and enjoying my cats and my partner and my friends. So life is actually feeling kind of smooth right now, which was not the case a few months ago. So I'm very thankful.
Girl, oh my God. Life has been lifing for real.
Yes. And it finally feels like for me, it's settling a little. And so I'm gonna take advantage. And the weather is beautiful, which is really nice. So.
Yeah. No, I feel like summer is settling in. I just felt like April was horrible. I'm like, if we could have just taken April off of the calendar, like life would be great. Like April was rough. But I'm so excited to hear your thoughts and your musings on friendship. As you know, this podcast is called Real Talk Friend Therapy. It is a space where we get real about our friendships, how we can deepen them, how we can audit them appropriately to make sure that they are serving us. And then also for us to get clarity on how we can be better people so that we can be the high quality friend that we seek to others. So today's episode is all about why friendship matters. Why is this relationship important for our thriving in life? And it's so funny. So I've been reading this book called Platonic, and it's a really good book, by the way. And I just find it so interesting how in the ancient world, friendship was seen as this very powerful relationship that was key to our flourishing. So powerful that priests in the Middle Ages distrusted friendship because they thought that the love that we have for our friends could eclipse the love that we have for God. But then in the 17th century, they were like, oh, wait a minute. I think our friends can actually help us be more passionate about our love for God. So we're good with this. We're good with this.
It's almost like they read where Jesus said something about being a friend.
Yeah. You know, but like to me, learning that was crazy. And when we even look at, so there was an Italian scholar, his name was Marsilio Ficino, and he's the one that coined the term platonic love. He saw platonic love as a relationship that was a pure form of love. It was a love for someone's soul. And he like specifically wrote, it does not desire this or that body, but desires the splendor of divine light shining through bodies, which I was like, ooh, poetry. Okay. But, you know, to think about how in the ancient world, friendship was something that was seen as so powerful and so beautiful and so pure. But then when we look at our modern world and how we look at friendship, it's kind of been relegated to this like second tier, even third tier relationship. You know, people will put their romantic love and their family love before their friendships. And so within this conversation, I would love to explore more about like, how can we bring back some of that value of friendship and its importance to us? But before we jump into all of that, I think it would be amazing for the audience just to learn more about you and your specialties as a therapist and what brought you into the field, your passions, the people you serve. So if you just want to walk us through a little bit more about you, would love that.
Sure. I love that you brought up classics. I was actually a classics major at my time at Scripps College. So
yeah, that's how we know. We Scripsies in the house.
Little throwback. That was fun. Yeah, so I honestly kind of fell into my specialties in the last year or so working with adults. I have worked with teens a lot in the process of getting my license. Love teenagers. Actually, long-term would love to work at a high school again, in part because of all the friend. I want to say drama, but also they care so much about friends, and it's actually really fun to help them develop healthy friendships. And so I do work with high school, college age a lot, but my specialties right now are working with other queer and neurospicy folks and people in the helping professions. So I do a lot of like autism, ADHD, executive functioning stuff with clients, identity development. I help clients build a positive self-image, strengthen their relationships. And my passion is creating lives that we enjoy. And so like, what does it actually look like to be intentional and create a life that you're not trying to escape, you're not trying to get away from, it's not overwhelming you with stress, but something that you genuinely enjoy that's fulfilling for you. And that doesn't always look like the, rise and grind culture that we find ourselves surrounded by. Yeah. So that's something I'm super passionate about with that. Like I have subspecialties in like trauma and disordered eating, anxiety, all that kind of stuff. But really for me, it's helping helping people well.
Yeah.
So that's something that, is just really fulfilling and super fun to work with clients in that.
I love that. And I think it's so interesting how you bring up how as teenagers, and honestly, I just feel like childhood in general, there's a passion about friendship that somehow gets lost the older that we get in life, and to the point where like it's drama. It's like, oh my God, like.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. But like, I think that I'm curious, like where that gets lost. But before we get into all of that, I want to know how you think about friendship personally. You know, are there any particular traits that you look for in a person to know that it's going to be a good fit, or that you kind of help your clients in terms of like, what are some friendship green flags that like you have either come to develop or have helped your clients develop? And maybe what are some red flags too?
Yeah. I mean, those are some great questions. And I think it was actually either episode 3 or 4, you mentioned those like rings of friendship. And I use that metaphor a lot, or sometimes a hill, but essentially that like, you know, everyone can't be the closest person. And so what are you really looking for? Those most intimate relationships is going to be a little different than like the people that you just hang out with, or the people that help you get through the day at work or school, or activity friends where you like participate in a sport. Like I just rejoined water polo, hella out of shape, but it's like really fun.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that it's a place where I can build a couple of friendships just from like participating in this activity we all love together. But for me, intimate friends are something that I deeply treasure. You know, your found family, squad, ride or die, whatever you want to call it. But these people matter the most to me.
Not to interrupt you, but
no, of course.
We're talking about how you have besties from 5 years up to like 33 years. And, you know, I mean, I'm the same way. I went to my childhood best friend's wedding a couple years ago. We've been friends since kindergarten. So
wow, that's amazing. Yeah. Do you remember how you became friends in kindergarten?
That's such a good question. Honestly, there was something about like when I was in school, I feel like I was just kind of like, I would look at someone and be like, you. And like, I couldn't verbalize it, but it was just like, I can tell you're a good person, so I'm gunning at you.
Yeah. To be honest, that is my strategy now. I haven't changed since kindergarten, so... Maybe it's the neurospicy flavors that I have going on in my brain, but I still am just drawn to certain people and I try to pay attention to that. And some things that are like engaging for me with other people who are emotionally intelligent, who care about people well, who have capacity to show up. And so that's kind of like my bottom tier. Like that is what you need to get close to me at all. Like that's what I'm looking for people
that's
together.
That's what you need to ride this ride. That is
and on any level, like even if we're activity friends, like I want to hang out with the person who's like friendly and fun and cares about other people well. But to go deeper, for me, it takes that reciprocity. Like I'm a high initiator. I have a lot of energy. I'm an extrovert to my core. And so like, I know I'm going to put in the energy to like invite people to stuff, to show up for favors, to like want to hang out. Like I always joke that like my dream is to like basically live on a college campus again. Like that would be so nice.
Literally, my friends and I, we've been talking about how we just need to, like, we're just going to buy a neighborhood together.
Yes. I literally moved to this neighborhood to be an 8-minute walk from one of my best friends. We're creating a commune in North Hollywood. Everyone come join us. But yeah, like that's half joking, half serious is my dream. Like I do think for me, I know we're different in this, but I like proximity and I really like constant contact. Those things are really important to me. I'm hella insecure. If we go 2 months without talking, I'm like, are we even friends? Do they hate me now? Like that's where my anxiety goes, you know?
No, totally. It's so funny because, and maybe it's just because of the industry that I work in. So like, I don't like to go without talking to you, but because it's, you know, being in entertainment, it's such a like a grind culture. Mm-hmm. I'm so used to going weeks without talking to people I really care about. And it's something that I don't like and I'm working on, but you know, it happens with some relationships.
Yeah, it really does. And like one of my closest friends, we've been friends since college. She lives in the Bay Area, but like we navigate that by, you know, sending memes, we text, we try to meet up sometimes. And so you just have to be more intentional with distance. And I know you're like an expert at that. So I could probably learn some things from you.
Now that I live out in the middle of nowhere. But I love it too, because like it then like I invite people to stay at my house like all the time. And then we get to, it's almost like so I went to boarding school for high school. And so I recently had a bunch of my high school friends come and spend a week with me. And it was like being in high school all over again. And, you know, I find that I may not get to see them a lot, but that I can see them in these like short, intense bursts that make me, and it feels like no love is lost when we get to spend that extended time time together.
Yeah. And I love that. And that reminder too, right? Like as long as you're intentional, it doesn't have to look like seeing somebody on a weekly basis. It can look different. And I think that's for me the next tier of friendship. So going from that reciprocity and intentionality, like to get even closer to me, more inner circle, it has to have that intimacy. Like we have to be willing to talk about the hard stuff in our lives, but also in our own relationship and friendship together. Like if I can't talk directly about the context of our relationship, that's where trust is built for me, is being able to invite each other in when we've been hurt, like to share our wants and needs without shame. And that doesn't mean we can always show up for each other in the way we need or the way we want, but we can at least make the request and then we can negotiate that together the same way I do with my romantic partner. Like I genuinely think close friends and close family members and close romantic partners all have that in common. The ability to talk directly about the relationship so that you can continue to love one another well.
Yeah. You know, and I feel like that's a learning lesson that I've gotten to at this stage in life. I feel like when I was younger, there was this feeling of like, oh, I have to avoid conflict and I have to like avoid being direct if I want to maintain the friendship. But I've actually learned now that it's like, no, it's about, you know, the people that you love never want you to swallow your pain. They never want you to hide what's bothering you. They want you to be real with them. And so I've like had to unlearn that, because I think, you know, it's also hard to, because I also feel like, you know, friendship's one of those things that we're not really taught. Like, I feel like there's such deep conversations about romance and like romance red flags and romance green flags. But with friends, it's just kind of like, you know, you're just thrown out there.
It's the Wild West out here.
Which is partially why I created this podcast, because I'm just like, there needs to be a deeper conversation, because we're in a loneliness epidemic. And I was like, oh totally. My God, you know, reading some of these books, it's been so crazy that I think one of them, there was a stat where Americans in particular hadn't made a new friend in like 5 years.
Wow. Yeah. It's pretty wild. And COVID really did strip away a lot of those cordial, friendly connections we had that weren't necessarily our closest friends. I do think most people in COVID, like that's kind of who you kept in touch with, right? It was like that top tier inner circle. But most of us who had to suddenly work from home, we weren't going to school or work or, you know, any of our extracurriculars, the gym, like all that kind of stuff, we lost touch with a lot of people. And that definitely affects our loneliness too. It's not just meeting those super close core people, but all of these friendly connections that kind of build the life.
Yeah, I will say for me, COVID, I almost feel like COVID allowed me, and I think, again, it's another industry thing where being in the entertainment industry, it can be so, especially also influencer industry, it can be really hard to navigate because they're trying to connect with you. And I think there was an episode where I talked about, you know, there are people that there's a difference between people in your network and people in your friend group.
Yes.
And I think that sometimes the lines can get blurred because people, you know, they want to get to the next level or whatever. And so COVID was great for me in the sense that it allowed me to get more clarity on like, all right, like there's death all around us, right? And you know, who are the people that like I am willing to risk getting this disease with? Like, who's in my bubble? Who do I trust enough to know that they're not going to kill us? And so, but then also too, it allowed me to like I feel like prior to COVID, there was this sense of, and not that proximity is amazing, but it was just that like you almost kind of forgot about other people in your life that were valuable, but maybe not in close proximity to you. And so it almost allowed me to reconnect. So now like I have friend groups now where we meet once a week on Zoom just to reconnect. Let's like, you know, just because we're not in the same state doesn't mean that we can't keep connection in some way. So
I love that. That's awesome. My grandma, she learned to use Zoom during COVID, and she actually has a group of friends. They've been friends since third grade. There were 12 of them. A number have passed away. My grandma's in her early 80s, but they got to gather on a weekly basis during COVID, and they kept that going. And I just think that it's so beautiful to see how people took advantage of that time to really reconnect with those relationships that mattered to them, and kind of recognizing that, again, you don't have to have proximity. You don't have to have constant contact to be a top tier friend or a good friend. It helps. And again, for me, out of sight, out of mind. It definitely helps me a lot personally. But I do think that level of intentionality, like people had to be intentional. People had to have that level of intentionality to have relationships during a freaking global pandemic. So I think in some ways it was a pruning where we kind of lost some of the fluff and some of the obligation and some of the people that we were like, yeah, I don't really know what they're adding to my life right now. And that kind of fell away. But then it also, for those who weren't as lonely, I think it was because they were intentional with connection and making that time to connect with others.
Yeah, I think intentionality is the word right there. I love that. And oh my gosh, there was something you said that I wanted to comment on. And this happens to me all the time. Like, my brain is just racing because I'm just like, oh my God.
It's fine. I find myself in therapist mode of like wanting to just sit here and listen. And I'm like, wait, no, I'm supposed to talk right
now. Okay, I'm sure it'll come back to me. It'll come back to me in like the most random way. But okay, so can you walk us through, like, just thinking like big picture, like, why is friendship such an important relationship for us? Why is it beneficial for our mental health? And, you know, also thinking like, how does not having friends like impact us?
Yeah. I mean, you know, I incorporate a lot of neuroscience counseling into my therapy. And so when it comes to most questions, that's where I start. And our bodies literally evolved for close relationships. So like from an evolutionary biological standpoint, like humans evolved to be in community. That was core to our survival. And so our amygdala, which is responsible for stress and everything, is going to get triggered when we start to feel like we're outside the group. And most of us probably remember what that felt like in middle school and high school specifically. But you might have that at other times. Like, you know, if you're kind of the lone wolf, black sheep of your family, say politically or around religion, or if you're coming out later in life as queer, like you're going to have that flare up of like, shit, am I still going to be in the group after this shift in my life? And so those anxieties are real. Our drive for connection is just biological. Now, I'm also not someone who's like, just because it's biology, that's what we have to do, because our brains are really complex and we've continued to evolve. And so there's a lot of benefits that we get from friendship. You know, being in a close-knit community gives us a lot of resilience in a number of ways, right? Like we see with financially, like having that kind of a support network where people can aid one another. We see it with relationship dynamics of that resilience when you're going through a loss, whether it's a loved one or a divorce or a breakup. Like you have more than just your romantic partner or just your family members to turn to. You have this community. And scientists have been studying friendship, probably not as much as romantic relationships. That is definitely lacking, but they've been starting to study it a little more. And we're seeing like the health benefits that it reduces depression, it reduces loneliness, it reduces anxiety, increases like our sense of self and self-confidence and our belief that we can accomplish something. Sorry, I nerd out about the science.
I love it. Like,
I can keep going, but I'll pause for a second.
I am science all day. I feel like it's like this like hidden thing because when I was younger, I thought I wanted to go into genetics. I thought I wanted to be a CSI. So I do have a slight sciencey, nerdy side of me that like geeks out about this stuff. So
awesome. Well, there was one study, and I wish I had it up right now to reference, but they found that people literally see a hill as less steep if they're hiking with a partner or with a friend. And, you know, we can't always extrapolate things out, but in my mind, given the other studies, like it makes sense that having friends helps us overcome things in our lives. You know, everything from job loss to getting pregnant, getting married, getting divorced, like moving, all these big life events that are some of the major life stressors, that having friends, having that community really protects us against the stress or depression or burnout or things like that could come with those big transitions.
I find that so interesting because for me personally, I agree. Like literally so my boyfriend and I are in couples therapy and we're trying out different therapists. And I had
Good for you. Date around.
Yes. Like if you are doing therapy, you cannot just do it with or put all your eggs in one basket. You got to diversify because you got to find the one that's going to be the right fit. Yes. And me and this, this man, he gaslit the shit out of me. Okay. Oh, to the point where like my boyfriend had to like step in and be like, you know, like I do think that I also have some issues. Like, I do think that she might be right about some things. And so the person I wanted to call was my best friend. And like, I was just like, you will not believe, like, like she is somebody that I turn to in those like high stress moments. But then, so I also wrote a book called Eat Your Way to Self-Confidence. And it's interesting because in writing that book, there's a section on friendship. And I just remember this study. It always sticks out in my mind that because we also have this like keeping up with the Joneses mentality, and that we, feel like we don't, again, like you talk about like not being ostracized from the group. I also find that there's a weird dynamic that will happen where people, their friendships almost kind of become their competition. And it's
frenemies.
Yes. And it's just so fascinating how that will happen, because like I agree with like, because of the deep friendships that I have, like to me, my friendships are like my most sacred circle. They are the people who like I am so vulnerable with. But I can also say for myself, I've been in friend dynamics where I feel like the person is trying to compete with me. And so the study, it was basically that. So let's say someone gave you like option A, you lose 10 pounds, but your friend loses 20, or you lose 5 pounds, but your friend only loses 2. Which would you choose? And people almost always choose the one where it's like they'll lose less weight, but the fact that they've lost more weight than their friend, that matters more to them than losing more weight, And I find that like, it's just so crazy. Like, I'm curious, like your thoughts on that.
Yeah. I mean, I would say you see it too, even just with introducing friends to other friends, right? Sometimes people are like, oh, I don't want to introduce them because they'll like steal them away.
Right. No new friends.
Which legit, I definitely had happened to me. I had some very painful friend breakups in a major transition in my life. And those can cause heartbreak. I do think losing friends is a really painful thing, and we don't talk about that enough either in our culture. But I think in those friend dynamics, there was this weird competition element of like thinking that I was going to take friends that they were trying to make when we were in this similar setting together. And I was like, there's enough love to go around. Like, it's not a limited resource. You know what I mean? Like, our time is limited. Like, I get there's some practicals, but like, we don't have to compete with one another. We can continue to invite and cultivate almost like a little a real community that's just friendship. It's not around, a religion or a workplace or whatever. Like, we can do that. Like, now being in a place where good people know good people, like I'm making friends through friends all the time. Like, that's one of the main ways I'm meeting people. And it's such a gift to be able to share that and then see my friends hang out. Like, my friend had a work trip up to the Bay and he met up with one of my best friends up there. And I was so happy and jealous because I wish I was there. Yeah. But like, I'm so happy that they're cultivating this friendship together. I'm so thankful that my friends love each other too. That's such like a beautiful thing to me. So I personally haven't gotten the competition side very much in terms of like how I've viewed relationships, but I've been on the receiving end. And all I know is it's uncomfortable for me because I've never tried to take anything from anybody. And I think that that's where people are probably just insecure. Like, I think it boils down to that insecurity and that like, oh, we're going to have to cut out this pause while I think of the right word or leave it in, Yeah. Like Brené Brown says, we can be a pause cast.
I love that.
Shoot, scarcity mentality. Don't know why that wasn't coming, but like there are a lot of people who live life that way. They live in that fear and that constant sense of insecurity, where again, like we don't have to be competing. My life improving does not make your life worse. And in fact, I'm at a point right now where like I have experienced some quality of life improvements once I got licensed, was able to get a higher paying job. And my immediate thought was like, how do I get my friends here? Like, how do I help people be financially secure in a way that they don't have this anxiety constantly? Like, it doesn't make me think like, oh, I'm going to keep going. Like, my immediate thought is to turn around and be like, wait, I'm not experiencing as much as anxiety as I used to. How do I help other people? But I think when you have a scarcity mindset, you're so focused on yourself, you kind of hoard stuff.
Yeah.
And so I think for most people like that, it's like you need to work on your insecurities and your fears and figure out what's stopping you from being happy for and celebrating your friends. Like, got to do some inner work there, I think.
Totally agree. So for the job that I work at, we worked with a therapist on a video and we were talking about jealousy and how jealousy can actually be a tool if we allow it to be. And it can be, revealing of, what do we want out of life? Because a lot of people, I think, sometimes think that their jealousy is stemming from like a specific thing, but it actually just could be that like you're jealous because your friend is stable and like maybe what you're looking for is stability. So like, how can you find what you need to be stable?
Yeah, I think jealousy and envy point out our wants and needs a lot. Yeah. And if we can pause and be like, wait, like, what do I feel like I'm lacking? What do I feel like I need or want? Then we can work on meeting those needs instead of being angry that someone else has something that we don't have.
So I'm curious, are there any surprising or interesting benefits of having strong friendships that you know of?
I mean, longer life continues to be the one that I come back to that is just really interesting to me. And again, like whether our goal is to live as long as possible or not, we could question that for sure. But when it comes to the conversation about health and well-being, we know that loneliness is actually more detrimental to our health long-term than obesity. Like people go on and on about obesity and it's like, no. Like loneliness actually matters more. Some studies even suggest that loneliness is a bigger detriment to our health than smoking. And so it's just considering like there's something about friends that help us live longer. For some of the reasons we already discussed, right? They reduce stress. Stress is such a thing that it taxes our immune system. It taxes our bodies so constantly. So if we can reduce our stress in any way, it's going to be helpful. But then I think friends helping with that like self-esteem and wellness, and you're doing activities you love and you're keeping your mind sharp because you're having conversations with people. And, you know, you might be doing some physical activities, which have extra benefits. You're doing stuff outside together, which has extra benefits. You're weathering those storms together. I just think, I don't know, it makes sense to me that having people near you is definitely what's going to help with longevity and like living those longer, happier, more fulfilled lives.
Yeah. So Platonic starts out telling the story of this older woman who lost her husband and how, you know, and it's so interesting how I feel like I don't know if there's been studies on it, but how like partners will kind of die not that long after one another. And I do think that part of it kind of plays into this grief that you feel, but also I think because of the isolation, because I think that a lot of times, especially in our modern world, once we get married, our partner kind of becomes our everything and we isolate ourselves from our friends. But this woman, they talked about how she cultivated a life of friendship and that her friends were the people who kind of kept her going and like, you know, allowed her to still feel a sense of like richness in life, even though her partner that she loved dearly had left. And I just find it so interesting how we have relegated this relationship to the back burner in our modern world. It just doesn't.
It doesn't make any sense. No, and like when you think about it in the past, part of it's also like our modern context, right? Like we commute everywhere. Whereas in the past, like you lived in a neighborhood and so you just kind of interacted with people, and for better or worse, right? I'm not going to romanticize it. What if you live next to an asshole? Like you're stuck living next to an asshole. But the good thing about that meant that we were kind of in constant contact with people. It was part of our daily living. Whereas now when you commute everywhere, you can be really isolated. I work from home. That could be really isolating. You know, I'll probably refer back to my grandma because I just admire her cultivation of relationships over 80 plus years so much. You know, she could easily just be home alone now that my grandpa's passed, but she lives in an older, like a retirement community that has activities. She has friends. She keeps in touch with friends all the way back from elementary school and high school. In fact, she had an 80th birthday and she had over 200 people there. It felt like a wedding. Like,
oh my God. There's like generationally going on with the older women of that era. Because my grandma was the same way. Grandma had reach.
That's amazing.
And like in a way that like I don't necessarily, my best friend, she's a producer on this podcast, and she had asked me a really interesting question about my mom and her friendships. And I was like, you know, my mom has friends and they like hung out, but like not in the same way that my grandma has been with her relationships. And so generationally, I find something really fascinating going on there.
And I wonder if it's like some of the modernization things, technology, like, yeah, I don't have the answer, but I do think it's an interesting question. They also wrote a lot of letters. So I think there's like an emotional depth to letter writing, right? Of like sharing about your life, sharing these intimate things. And so before email, like my grandma wrote like hand wrote letters to friends all the time. And so I'm curious like how, or they would talk on the phone for like an hour or two, you know? So I'm curious just how things have changed where we might be connected to all these people because of social media. That doesn't mean that those are friendships. It doesn't mean that those are deep connections, right? They could be networks, they could be acquaintances, but how do we kind of start taking that to the next level?
I know. I mean, to write a letter to somebody, I mean, you got to mean something. I'm not about to risk arthritis. No acquaintance.
I mean, our phones are giving it to us too. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. But I do, when you say that, I'm like, yeah, because it's like, but even like, you know, it's so easy to just like, oh, here's my number or text me or whatever. Like, I still feel like, even though we're like writing these things, it's not in the same way as like, you know, when you handwrite something, it's so different. It's almost like there's like a labor going, like texting doesn't really feel like a labor. It just kind of feels like whatever. But like, you know, like my friends, they for years, they've made me these like beautiful birthday cards that they would like put pictures of me in and stickers. And, you know, it's just like, you know, and those are some of my most cherished birthday cards because like, yeah, you can go buy something from Papyrus and like, you can spend a lot of money on it, but there was something about the handcrafted nature of them that makes them so like valuable to me.
Yeah. And taking the time to handwrite that note. It's funny you were talking about birthday cards. That's like the one thing I ask for my birthday whenever I do something is just like, bring a card. Like I like hearing nice things about me and I like telling my friends nice things about them on their birthdays. So it's like, yeah, it just means a lot to me to hear those words or to like share those words with my friends. But yeah, I just think that we've lost that art of that depth of communication on that level. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe we have to go ask our grandmas for some advice next time.
I know. Now we got to be writing letters. Like I'm just going to be, and I'll tie them to a pigeon too. Why not?
Hey, you can just grab any pigeon. Apparently they were all domesticated at one point.
My friend, so she's doing like animal videos and she's telling me all this wild stuff about pigeons, that like pigeons were actually a much classier bird than what we have relegated them to be in our modern world.
Yeah, we did pigeons dirty as humans, that's for sure. There was another side effect of friendships that I just thought of that I found really interesting. And in an age of capitalism, this is not why I would justify having friendships, but companies have discovered that when they have a higher level of like friendship within their company, that they have higher profits, according to a Gallup survey. And I thought that was fascinating. And I guess it kind of makes sense because you're collaborating and you're engaged. And I don't know, you have someone that you like look forward to seeing at work and you can ask questions without feeling weird going to like a manager. So yeah, I don't know. I was curious about that one, but it was definitely an interesting find.
Well, I will say, I mean, one of my like, literally we joke about how we're going to die in a casket together. Like we met at work and
at BuzzFeed, right?
Yeah, at BuzzFeed. And I'm like, we found love in a hopeless place.
You know, we've been there. My bestie from college. We've been through hell and back, and we're still friends. So I'm like, all right, we've endured.
Yeah, you know what's so fascinating about the letter writing thing is that, so in Platonic, she also talks about how Abraham Lincoln and his best friend, they used to write letters to each other, and like how like, and they talk. I really want to do an episode on like men and friendships in particular because I do feel like with men, friendship is, I can't tell you how many adult men that I know that feel so isolated and like, you know, their partner is their only friend, you know, and how making male friends is hard. But like, what's so fascinating is the depth that these men had in their relationships. Like they would start their letters with like, dear beloved, and like, you know, they would share beds together and like take care, nurse each other back to health. There was a real sense of intimacy that has, you know, because of homophobia, I think really stinted the depth of relationships among men.
Yeah, I do think that and it's funny because I was actually talking to my friend recently about friendship dynamics, and he's a gay man, and we were talking about how a lot of his friends, like he's invited them to multiple parties and they just aren't exchanging numbers. Like they know each other, they've been around each other a few times, they seem to get along, but like neither one is just taking the effort to initiate and be like, hey, like we should hang out sometime. Meanwhile, I met these people and was instantly like, hey, we should hang out sometime. Yeah. So, just that difference.
Hearing you say that, I almost, because I just feel like, you know, women I think tend to have higher emotional intelligence. And there's just, I almost find that maybe with like within relationships, like with my boyfriend and I have to be like, okay, so like, let's go out, let's go do this. Let's do, like, I almost feel like women are kind of natural initiators in like a relationship context in a way that men tend not to be. And so I wonder if that's, and again, this is socialization. It's not like
totally
biological context at all. But like, I do find it fascinating that I feel like men are not great initiators.
No, and I was trying to think about that, and I know that there have been studies about like because women are socialized from the time they're girls to like be more open about their feelings and talk about those things a little bit more. We're more comfortable in that kind of intimate emotional connection setting. And there's all the stereotypes of like, oh, men have to do an activity like side by side or whatever. But I am a little curious if it has to do with some of the socialization, like of boys being like enrolled in certain things. And so like their activities were like planned for them by their parents. And I don't know, I'd be curious to see studies on that. I'm not totally sure. And then I'd be curious too for people who've transitioned or non-binary folks, like how they find like making friends. Do they tend to find like, yeah, generally like women or femmes are like higher initiators versus like men and mask folks? And yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting observation, but it definitely seems true for a lot of the men I talk to as well, that like having deep, intimate friendships is hard. And my partner probably gets annoyed that I push him to talk more intimately to his friends.
Yeah. Well, it's so interesting with my partner because he's very much like a lone wolf type person. Like he's kind of like, and I always found it fascinating. And then I went home or to his home and I saw that he grew up with a lot of cousins. Like he has so many cousins.
Oh.
And so I was like, and they're all very close in age. So I was like, oh, I think that part of this is because you grew up kind of with like innate friends. And so, because it doesn't seem to bother him. I feel like it actually bothers me more than it bothers him. He's like, I'm doing my thing. And it's not like he's not friendly or anything, but he definitely has, he's strong like lone wolf energy.
Yeah. And personality matters, right? Like how many friends you need, like that top tier, super close friends, you know, on average, people say it's like between 1 and 5. And that has a lot to do with like your capacity for friendship, but even just your desire for like other relationships versus being alone. Again, I feel like I'm the most extreme extrovert of my friends. And so I know that like at some point I just have to be satisfied with being alone. And I can do that. Like I've worked a lot on that as an adult. And I loved it as a kid. Like I could sit in a room alone and play Legos or color or draw or like play outside for like hours and not care. And so I am trying to figure out for myself, like, oh, what is this need to constantly be around people? Am I avoiding stuff? Which is always such an annoying question to have to ask ourselves. And I think a lot of it is just that like, oh no, this is just really fulfilling and I enjoy it. It's what I like. Like I love people and it's part of my job for a reason because I'm passionate about it. And it's also just how I want to spend my time is around other people. So, but I recognize I'm on an extreme end, right? And then other people are going to be on their own side. So as introverts or ambiverts and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. So the next question I have for you is, why do you think it's so challenging to make friends, especially as we get older?
That is a good question. I mean, I think some of it is the baggage that we carry that we haven't dealt with. So like as our insecurities and our fears and stuff have kind of started to cement into our own personalities, I don't think we always realize what we're bringing into an environment where we could be making friends. I'm really thankful I had some very loving mentors in college who basically like taught me that awkwardness is just kind of a construct in our own heads. And like, if you just push through, it's not awkward. And that really helped me to become, I think, as extroverted as I naturally would have been in high school, but I had so much insecurity. I always felt everything was awkward. I just avoided a lot of social situations. So that was an insecurity that
the construct that needs to be like a bumper sticker.
Yeah, that it's like, it really is mostly in our heads. Like, yeah, of course things are like a little awkward and people might think like, oh, that was a little awkward. But no one's like, oh my God, did you see what so-and-so did? Like, I mean, some people are like that, but are those the people you want to be your friends? No. So like, who gives a fuck? So we just kind of push through and like navigate those things. So I do think insecurity holds a lot of people back. As we talked about in modernization, I do think our lack of overlap causes that, right? If you're just not in proximity with enough people, like that's going to affect you because you're not forming those habits to constantly be in spaces with new people unless you're really intentional. Like, you know, most people don't go to the gym thinking like, oh, I wonder if I can find a gym buddy here. Like they just go to the gym and they leave or they invite a friend already, right? And so some of it is like, again, that word intentional is going to keep coming up.
But I love it. It's
you have to put yourself out there. Like you have to join groups or clubs or be in spaces because most of us don't know our neighbors. Like most of us work a commute away. Even if you're part of a religious community, it's likely a commute away. So it's still just the like, we're not in these spaces to make friends. So, you know, you can take a class, you can join a smaller gym. Be careful, they're all a little culty. My other passion, talking about cults and religious trauma. But like, you know, join a gym. Yeah. How do you survive friendships post cults? But like, do things. Like it sounds so silly. And it doesn't have to be in person. You know, people find like discords around topics that they're passionate about. They play video games and like start to build these relationships with people and then kind of have that kind of consistency. But you do have to put yourself in a situation where you're going to be interacting in order to possibly make friends. And so it takes takes like more energy and effort to do that. Whereas like when we were in school, you saw the same 30 kids every day for an entire school year. Like you're gonna make friends, most likely. Yeah, I think that's
hearing you say that, it's almost kind of like, so there's this podcast that I listened to, and she talked about how she was coaching someone who felt like she was never going to find the love of her life or whatever. And she's like, okay, well, let's get intentional about it. Like, what if you schedule 200 dates? You know, she's like, are most of them going to be shit? Probably. But, you know, the more you put yourself out there, the more likely you are increasing your chances to find the thing that you're looking for. And so when you think about how we developed friendship in school, I mean, again, like you said, we were with the same 30 kids 5 days a week for like 8 hours a day for a whole year. And so there was gonna be like, you're increasing your chance of making a friend with at least one kid in that bunch because of all of that proximity and time.
Yeah.
And so if we take that same mindset, like, you know, who knows who you might meet if, again, it's carrying that same intentionality, but because it was baked in when we were in school, we don't see it that way.
Yeah. And like, I recognize there's also a privilege, right, to being able to like sign up for stuff or do certain things, but there are volunteer opportunities. And even like, if there's any like moms listening, I get that time is very different, right? Like being single or partnered without kids versus with kids, like it's a different life. But what I've seen a lot of my friends who are moms do is like the same thing I feel like people with dogs do. You like use your kid to make friends a little bit, right? Like you're going to be in spaces with other adults because of your kid. And so like, can you be the one who's like initiating those conversations with other moms or other dads or parents? And like, can you invite people over for some casual hangs? Like, can you just start to see it as something that you have to put in a little bit of effort, but it will happen. Yeah, it's not going to be everybody, but even just having those activity friends, like one of my friends, I really admire him. Like he actually kind of did get his neighborhood together because they all had like younger children and they kind of created, he was the only dad. It was like all moms and he was on like the parent chat, but it was mostly moms. But they would like message each other like, hey, we're going to go to the park or hey, we're going to do this. And so it was just that consistency to actually start to build some friendships. Obviously, he didn't get super close to every single person, but there were like one or two families that they got a lot closer with and their kids got closer with. And so that develops into deeper friendships. And so a lot of it's just looking for that potential and believing it's there. Like, I think this gets back to that inner work, right? Like, are you someone that people want to be friends with? And if that's the case, then just initiate and show up as yourself and people will see who you are. People will like you. They will be drawn to you eventually. And like, eventually those connections can go deeper and deeper.
Yeah. It reminds me, there was an episode where I was just like, yeah, I'm alluring. I think that about myself. Deal with it. And you know, it's just like, I also think I'm a giant dork too. Like,
oh yeah, obviously.
But I do think that if you learn to like yourself, other people will be drawn to that. It's like, oh, she really likes her. Because it's actually sad how many people don't like themselves. And I hate that. I want anyone that's in my group to love themselves as much as I love myself. So.
Yes, I agree. And that was a healing journey for me, like learning to love myself, like, you know, and I think that that's part of it too, is like recognizing that there are things that you like about yourself is a good place to start. And also just starting with shit you like you don't have to make yourself go do something you don't want to do to make friends. Like find people who like what you like. That's one of the most common and easy ways to start a friendship is just a shared hobby or a shared space.
Yes, exactly. Like work again.
Yeah, work is a great place to make friends.
Again, I feel like there's something I was thinking about, like some close relationships I have, and I feel like they all started in like spaces of like trauma, but like.
I mean, going through stress together can definitely be bonding.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I was at the dog park yesterday, as you mentioned, like with moms and their kids, but like also like adults that have pets. And there was a couple there that was joking that like, you know, the dog's names better than you know the pet parent's name.
So real. I love that. And I had a friend who, you know, she doesn't have kids, but she wanted to like throw a party. So her dog was turning 4. She threw a party for her dog, invited all of her friends, but also all of her dog park friends. Yeah. And so like her dog's friends came to the party, right? But that meant that different people got to connect a little bit who may never have met otherwise. And it's actually, that's become the solution that my friends and I who talk a lot about friendships are coming to is like, we just need to throw more parties because we just need more hubs where people can come together, meet and connect and potentially become friends. We don't need an agenda. Like we don't need a structure. It can be themed if that's your thing. Like but just throwing parties, like do watch parties, board game nights. Like one of our friends just got his master's, so he's throwing a college themed party.
Oh my God.
And he was like, the best college parties have randos, so invite all your friends, like anyone's welcome. And I'm like, this is awesome. Like, this is how you meet people, is just people you know inviting groups together. And so, you know, we lost, I mean, it depends on where you live. If you live on a cul-de-sac, cool, you might still have block parties. But a lot of us who are living in apartments and can't afford homes and stuff like that, like we lost the block party. And that was also another way that our parents made friends. And so trying to just come up with different strategies now that things have changed so much.
It's so funny. On TikTok, I saw that this girl threw a grandma themed party and everyone came dressed like their older version of themselves. And I was like, this is epic. Like,
I love that so much. Speaking of work, my friends and I are such nerds, but we were talking about how funny it would be to do like a presentation about like, what the fuck is your job? And then also, sorry, I didn't ask if I could cuss on this podcast. I realized.
Oh my God, of course.
I was like,
my God.
Such a dirty mouth. Anyway, it's so funny with the first time, sorry, this segue, but the first time a client cusses in session and they're like, oh my God, I was like, I don't give a fuck. Like, we're fine. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Anyway, my friends and I were huge nerds and we were talking about like, you know, we all have jobs, but we don't really talk about our jobs because that's not how we connected or how we got to know each other. And so we're like, how funny would it be to have a party where you have like 5 minutes, you give a presentation about like, what the fuck do you actually do for your job? And then you talk about your work nemesis. We all have one. Like, let's be real. That person that drives us crazy. And you can vent about your work nemesis to your friends. They actually understand who you're talking about now whenever you're complaining about, like, you know, Karen. And and at the end, we were like, well, we need some kind of positive affirmation. And we were like, we hear you and we agree so-and-so sucks or whatever. Like, we were just... But like, it was very silly. I don't know if I'll ever do that. But like, we're just being playful with the idea of like, what would we actually get value out of right now? Like as people, like what are our wants and needs? And how do we plan events or parties or activities that are actually focusing on that? And just making space for that. Because like, again, a lot of us have left, you know, the religions that we grew up in, or we're not part of any kind of organized community or group. And so we have to create that space. And so trying to figure that out together. And it's going to be messy. It's going to be fun. And, you know, hopefully other people meet friends along the way. That would be the hope.
Yeah. And then I know that you talk about for yourself how religion used to be a big part of your upbringing and you're now kind of like post that. Mm-hmm. And so I'm curious about that journey and how that has impacted your friendships in terms of like, you know, like how hard was it for you to leave that group? And, you know, have you been ostracized? Like, have you been able to maintain relationships from people that you grew up in religion with? Or like, have you been ostracized and how have you dealt with that?
Yeah. I mean, once I started going to scripts and got a lot more liberal than I was going in, I definitely felt some shifts with my family, but I think we weathered that storm and we respect each other a lot and love each other. And, you know, there are still things from my upbringing that I really value, and from I grew up Christian, from Christianity that I really value. And so I think it's like there's a place for that mutual respect and love and care. When it comes to friends, that is another story. I think the Christian community I was part of was in college, emphasized a lot about like being community. And, you know, again, I take things pretty literally sometimes. So I meant it. Like I deeply loved and cared for everyone in the community. I rose up in leadership because that's what I felt like was loving to do, to like serve and like mentor and like give back. And eventually I worked in ministry for a while. And then at some point, you know, the organization confirmed that they were not LGBTQ affirming, which was really disheartening because they had been a multi-denominational group and there are sects of Christianity that are affirming. So we kind of all assumed we had a safe space, and that just wasn't the case. So eventually I did have to leave. And when I left, I mean, I lost basically everybody. Some of that was by choice of like, wow, this has been fake this whole time. You don't actually love and care for me for who I am or for the people that I love most in my life. You know, most of my closest friends are queer as well. And so like, it just felt like this just wasn't compatible for me. Some of it was a friendship breakup happened at the same time. That was a rough thing too. Not actually about this specifically, but that was another thing to weather. And then, you know, the ministry people that I'd worked with as coworkers who had constantly called ourselves a family, which now I know that is red flag work talk. If you're calling that workplace a family, you do not have work-life balance. Yeah. You have unhealthy expectations of your employees. And it's a coercive control tactic. Like it brings up that familial obligation that a lot of us have, not everybody, but a lot of us have to really show up for our families. And
sidebar, it makes me think of how like, so Netflix is like notoriously known for being like, we are not a family. We're like a sports team.
Okay, like some of us have trauma around that too.
Yeah. But it's just so funny because like I remember people being like, oh damn, okay. But like, I hear like, yeah, it can be very coercive when people in an employment sense try to talk about family, because it's like my family doesn't like control my money, like,
Right.
well,
Yeah.
depending on conservatorships and all that craziness. But like,
True.
For the most part, like they don't control my livelihood.
Right. Yeah. It's pretty wild. So like that work group, when I left, not a single person reached out to me, like not one that was like, hey, I'm so sorry this happened. Like, I would love to keep contact, like nothing. During COVID, a few people from my past reached out to me. Some of them had heard that I had gotten divorced or was separated from my ex. And they're like, hey, I heard. And I was like, dude, that happened like a year and a half ago. Like, we are not friends. We don't need to talk about this. Like,
yeah.
Deuces. So I think that there's something about Christian community that creates this obligation around friendships and relationships that doesn't actually let real friendships grow as much or as healthily as they could without a lot of that like context and obligation thrown onto it. So like my one friend, I don't think she cares if I say her name, my one friend, Lindsay from college, like she is the only one really from that period of my life who stayed. And then another friend, when I worked in ministry for a little while, who was actually one of my students, who was in my bridal party and stuff, like who stayed. But for the most part, I mean, it's now where like if I saw anyone, I'd be cordial. I don't like have any ill will, but it was pretty eye-opening to see like how much of this was like a forced obligation thing and not a genuine, we love and care for one another. We're going to show up for each other. We're going to reciprocate. That emotional intimacy didn't actually develop. I thought it was like, I felt pretty blindsided, but I think that's why I've thought about friendship so much in the last few years, is kind of healing from that and being like, okay, what actually makes a good friend? What does that look like? How do I know I can trust somebody? How do I know they're going to show up? And part of that is you do have to take the risk, right? Like you have to put yourself out there a little bit. But now instead of putting all of myself out there, I put it out in pieces and like see how people respond and then kind of build that intimacy with time, which is, I think, another lesson I've learned is like you have to be patient. You cannot rush intimacy. You cannot rush trust. Just like in dating, right? Like if you told someone on day 3 that you were deeply in love with them, like that'd be a red flag. People would be afraid. Yeah. But I fall hard for friends. Like I really do. I see the potential of where we could go, and that excites me. And I like, we put on the brakes. We'll hold back now. We slow down. But potential, I feel like you have some thoughts on that.
It's just like, potential can be a real mind fuck. I think, especially as women, because I feel like women, we've been taught to like desire projects.
I can fix him. Yeah, the beast.
And like to just be drawn to like this person has greater potential and I can bring it out of them. And for me, I've learned that like, if you have potential, that's great. But like, I need something more solid than that. Oh my God, there was something else I was going to say. Oh, this has happened to me twice today. I feel like there is a kindredness to our reckoning with past friendships. Mm-hmm. And I think that for me, what I've learned too is that it's not just about what I'm willing to bring to the friendship. It has to be about what they're willing to bring to the friendship too.
Oh, yeah.
Because like, especially when you're someone that's so eager and open, I find that my problem was that, again, because I was like, oh, they have potential, or oh, they'll get into it eventually. It's like, no, like you gotta, what is Maya Angelou's quote? I love this quote. She's like, when they show you who they are the first time, believe them. And so I'm learning like, yes, Auntie Maya.
And what I love about that is it works both ways, right? Like it's showing you, okay, they're not reciprocating. Okay, I just need to accept like this is the depth that we can have at this time, whether it's a season of their life or just this is where it is. And if I'm okay with that, cool, our friendship can look this way. But it also means that like when your friends tell you they love you, they care about you, they want to be there for you, like they're happy to watch your pets, like they're not lying to you, right? Like they mean that. And I think on both ends, like we have to listen to people. We can't get caught up in our own fantasies and we can't get caught up in our own fears. We really do have to pay attention to like how they're showing up and believe them.
Yes. Oh, I love that. And so I find that we are often so obsessed with making friends, but like not as equally obsessed as like maintaining the relationship. And so I'm curious why you think that is. Like, why do we tend to go for quantity over quality when it comes to friendship?
That's a great question. And I don't actually know that I have an answer, but I would say that my musings on the topic would be that, again, because of insecurity, we don't know how to do intimacy well. Because of family of origin stuff, we don't know how to talk about our wants and needs directly. Because of, and this, I think it's rooted in insecurity, but I think it's also culturally of like that hyper independent American culture, like asking and giving favors is how you build relationships. Like it is one of the main ways that you slowly build friends. Like being willing to drive somebody to the airport, being willing to watch somebody's pets, like, you know, being willing to drop somebody off work because they don't have a car, or like carpooling together. Like we've made it, there's been a lot of conversation about labor in relationships, and some of it is great. Like especially stereotypically, women have done more labor, people of color have done more labor in their relationship. Like that's just real. But that never was supposed to say that we were going to like itemize our fucking labor and be like, you owe me this, you owe me this, you owe me that. Like I'm not going to do more than like, no. Like reciprocity doesn't have to be calculated and boiled down to like hard math. It can just be, again, that reciprocity. So like, okay, I'm willing to do this. Okay, do they show? Okay, cool. Like we can keep going deeper and deeper and like see where this goes. And part of that is lovingly taking care of one another. Again, like you would with your partner. Like it's not asking my partner a favor to be like, hey, can you empty the dishwasher? Or like, oh, I'm going to be home late. Can you make dinner? Like, no, that's just shit you do because you're partners. And I wish we saw that, especially for the intimate friends, like those top tier friends, that is what it should look like, I think. Maybe that's just my personal opinion, but I do think that's real.
I am here for it. It's so funny that you talk about the itemization, because there was this TikTok, and I thought it was for real at first, where this girl was like, oh, my sister dropped off her kid with like nothing. So I sent her an itemized bill.
I saw that too. I was dying. That was so funny.
That was so good. It ends up, it's a joke, but like she was like 25 cents per like toilet flush. And I was like, this cannot be real. This cannot be real.
Yeah, I think that's a big one. And the last one I would say is commitment. I do think that we're commitment phobic. You know, we live in such a fast-paced society. We're always looking around for the next best thing. And I think, unfortunately, that applies to people. And people really need to check that. I think that's tapping into empathy. We need to tap into compassion and care. We need to recognize that, like, being interdependent is actually in our best interest as well as the people around. Yeah, I just think we need to tap into that depth of, like, no, this is a human being. And, like, you can't just keep flaking on them. Like, that's not how you treat people. That would be hurtful to you too, right? So like, how do we negotiate those things as friends and recognize like, yeah, you got to show up. You got to be consistent. You have to be committed to some level. All relationships require commitment. And so does friendship.
Yeah. So that brings me to like my next question, because I find that length of time is something that is really valued when we think about friendship. You know, like, again, like I've been friends with my childhood best friend since we were 5 years old. But do you think that that is, when we talk about commitment and length of time kind of is in there, like, do you think that time is like, oh, I've known this person for X amount of years, so they're my friend? Like, is that a metric that we should actually be judging our friendships by?
I mean, I was with my ex for a decade and we're not friends now. So, like, and my current partner, you know, we've been together 4 years, and it is a deeper, healthier love than anything I experienced before that. And I mean, like, family, friends, romantic, like anything. And because of that relationship and the healing I've experienced in that, my friendships are also the best I've ever experienced in my life. Like, I know what love is supposed to look like, in part because of those friends and in part because of this partner. Like, they all kind of happen simultaneously, where that stuff solidified for me. And I think that, like, I have one of my childhood besties. I've been friends since I was 3 years old, and he's amazing and I love him to death. But I'm not necessarily closer to him just because of that context than my other bestie who I've known for 5 years. They're different relationships. They give me different things. You know, they're emotionally intelligent. They'll show up. They'll do favors. They're committed. Like, all those things I need in my top tier friends, but they're different people. And I get different stuff from that. And they know different sides of me in deeper ways. So I don't think time has to be it. I wish more people thought about, you know, every time you're going into a new space, you could meet your next best friend, because it's true. Like, you have no idea who you're going to click with. And, you know, it's almost like I've had this experience a few times where I met someone and I was just like, oh my God, we're like soulmates. Like, just that feeling of like, oh shit, like we really click. Not all of those people led to being besties. Some of them were potential people and I had to let it go. And it's really hard. It makes me so sad to this freaking day. But that's real. Like, that chemistry is real when we click with people, paying attention to that. When you share a lot of values with someone, paying attention to that when you are into a lot of the same things and you just notice that you like being around that, just paying attention to how they make your body feel. Like, do you feel safe? Do you feel like you can show up more as yourself? Like, there's all these things to pay attention to. And so, yeah, personally, I don't think time has anything to do with it. I think it's amazing. I think people are really lucky when they've had friends for that long. I know I'm really lucky for having my best friend. And I know that we went through some shit. Like, there were some periods of time where we weren't in constant contact. Little dum-dum moved to France right when he graduated high school. So, living his best life, leaving me in the United States.
How you really feel, right?
No, he can love France and Europe. I'll just visit. But we lived together. Like, after I separated from my ex, he happened to have moved back to the US around the same time. Everything kind of worked out and we got to live together for a couple years. And like, I kid you, like, living with my childhood best friend was what we were like, our 8-year-old selves would literally die if they knew that we live together now. Like, we have an apartment. Like, this is so cool. I would say more than anything, your childhood friends can keep you young in that regard. They can remind you of those parts of yourselves. But I also think your new friends can pull that out of you too. So, and I'm a big fan of healing the inner child. I think there are a lot of things that we put on as adults that we think is what it looks like to be an adult.
Oh my God, yes.
And I think friends help us stay young. I do think that's a real thing. They help us connect to our inner child. They help heal those things. They help remind us of what we're passionate about. Like, all my friends talking about joining sports teams and doing that made me be like, fuck, I love water polo. Like, I should look for a league. And so I found this amazing, inclusive queer league. And it's so great because I haven't played in over a decade. So like, I was scared. But I think it's just like, seeing other people pursue things they love, people who I love pursuing things they love reminds me of like, oh shit, like what do I love that I'm not engaging with in my life? Like, how can I seek that out? Like we talked about earlier, it doesn't have to be a competition. I look at them doing stuff they love and I'm like, wait, I want more of that too. And hearing their stories of, success and fun and joy and fulfillment helped me seek those things out in my life. And so, yeah, friends are great and it's hard.
Yeah, no. Moral of the story is they're great, but it's hard. Like,
really true. Finding people is hard. I think that's the thing is it's like, it's knowing that not everyone's going to click or not going to be a best fit with everybody. That's okay. Not everybody wants the same level of intimacy you want. Not everyone has the same capacity you have. I'm saying this to myself literally as we say this right now. It's okay. They are where they are and you are where you are. And if you have a need to be met and they can't meet that, can you accept them for who they are, the friendship for where it's at, and keep looking for the friends that you really need?
Which easier said than done.
Oh, for sure. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
I cried about it to my therapist 2 weeks ago. We're fine.
Yeah, I would say that that's the biggest, that was part of my emotional reckoning, was understanding that like, it's okay for somebody to be in a different place than you are. Like, it's crazy for me to think that it's like, just because I want to be besties, just because this is how I feel does not mean that that's how they feel. And it's about meeting people where they are. And again, like you also said, trusting the process and knowing that like you will find that alignment as long as you are open to finding it. And so maybe you didn't find that alignment with this person right now, but like it will come.
Yeah. And I think that like those close friends, a lot of times you don't know who they are until you transition. Because when you're just in that space or that shared, again, like whatever it is, that shared space, shared engagement of some kind, when you leave that, who keeps reaching out? Like, who do you reach out to? Who do you miss? Then that might actually be a friend. Like that could be some, like I recently left a job and there are a few people from there that I'm still keeping in touch with. And I'm like, oh, we became friends. Like that's actually meaningful. And we try to see each other. It doesn't look the same, but like we're actually putting in that effort to stay in touch. And so I think sometimes you need transitions too, to see like, okay, who sticks around, like who's really close versus who was like, it was the context, and contextual friends are okay. That's not a bad thing. We need, in fact, one of the studies I was looking at, which again, I should write these down so I can cite them. I want to be professional. I was a researcher anyway, was talking about how like people are happiest if they have about 150 friendly connections. So those are not friends. A lot of that is acquaintances. Like,
yeah,
I think it's like over 100 of those are acquaintances, but it's like those people who the example they gave was like, if you saw them sitting at the airport, you would like go over and talk to them. And so I'm like, yeah, like who are those people in our lives? And just having those friendly connections is good for us. Like the barista you see every morning. If you get coffee every morning, I do not. But like if that's what you're doing, you know, just these interactions that we get to have over and over with the same people. Yeah, that are just part of our lives, that those people matter too. It's not just trying to get the most intimate friends, which is what I have to remind myself of. It's like not everyone's climbing the hill. It's not like I can expand that ring and suddenly have 50 super intimate friends. I do not have time for that. Like that is just not realistic, even though again, the commune is happening. Everyone come. But I think it is. It's just that routine of like, okay, how can we continue to see these contextual friends, value them for what they are, and then see who's going to kind of make it out of that circle into like the good friend, the close friend. So.
Yeah, no, the transitions part I think is so real and I value it so much because I do think there's part like whenever you're making these transitions and people fall off. I mean, I always think it's important to grieve certain things if it's impacting you, but also like understanding. I think I've had to learn that it's also just a part of life, you know, like sometimes, like you said, we just can't maintain all of these relationships. And so it's okay. And then another thing that a friend said to me is that like, you know, people come in and out of our lives, you know, it's okay for people to kind of just like go away for a season and then maybe you come back and restart it again and you have a base. Like it's okay to revisit relationships based on, you know, your new context or transition or wherever you're at in life.
Yeah. And I think that grieving that loss is so helpful because I think it can be really easy to get caught up in those other stages of grief, right? Like anger and denial and depression and just taking that rejection, taking it as rejection, when in a lot of ways it isn't. Like, again, it's just as humans, we only have capacity for so many close and good friendships, but we still need those contextual friendships. Like those matter. Those do help us live happier, healthier lives. And so we shouldn't undervalue them just because they're not the most intimate friends. And again, I'm preaching to myself right now because that's like, I'm trying to cultivate more rings. This last year was hell. Like I planned a wedding. I studied for my licensing exam and finished my hours. I got licensed. I was on like a 5-week trip over the summer, which was awesome, but like still exhausting. I got a new job. My grandpa passed away. And like I was hitting burnout and grief all at the same time. My capacity was like, I could talk to like 5 people on a regular basis or 6. And it was like my mom, my grandma, and my 4 really close friends and my partner. Like that was like all I had capacity for. And I'm now in a stage of like coming out of that and looking around and being like, okay, I feel secure in my really intimate relationships, but shit, like I do not have a lot of context friends right now. I work from home. Making friends when you work from home sucks. So it's just that intentionality of like, okay, how do I start putting myself out there again and starting that cycle over? And just reminding ourselves like it is a cycle. Like you might look around and be like, shoot, I need to cultivate more intimate friends, or I need to cultivate more good friends or more context friends. Like that's a normal thing. Like these rings are not stagnant. They're going to move. They're going to change and shift, especially with changing seasons or any life transitions. So yeah, I think it's also just reminding ourselves like sometimes we have to just put in more effort than we've been because things look different now. And it's okay, even if it sucks and is super annoying. We have to put ourselves out there all over again.
Or awkward, because awkward is a construct. Like.
True that. It really is. It's a good reminder.
Oh my God. This was like the most amazing conversation ever. Is there anything else that you would love to add to this conversation that I didn't ask you?
I mean, it's messy and that's okay. It's part of the process. I do think starting to see making friends a little bit like dating would be helpful for people because I do think it's starting to recognize like those stages are part of a friendship too. They look different, but it's still there. I wrote in all caps, commit to people. I live in Los Angeles. People are flaky as fuck.
No, so. Yeah, I mean, again, as somebody, because I also like LA is like, again, entertainment, influencer, like, and I just also think, although I know LA natives get mad, they're like, it's not us, it's the people who come here. And I'm like, fair, fine, whatever. But
I mean, I'm a SoCal girl through and through. Some people are just flaky. They can't. There's no excuse.
No, it's us too.
Yeah, it's for real. Yeah, I mean, I do think that's a big part of it is like, it does take commitment. And so like, are you willing to put in the time and energy for friendships? Because if you're someone who's going on and on about how like, you don't have any friends, like, okay, but where's the effort? And now there are some people who really are struggling to make friends and they're doing everything they can. And like, we have a different conversation for that. That's why this podcast isn't therapy. It's just me chatting. But
exactly. This is not therapy. We're okay. It
yeah,
is
not therapy. I would say too, if a change is coming, like name it, label it, talk about it with your friends. So like my partner and I are considering having offspring in somewhere down the line. And that gives me a lot of anxiety. Having kids is one of the major transitions where women and people with uteruses lose friends. Just like going through pregnancy and having offspring is like, it's a big one. And so I have a lot of anxiety. And I've been sharing honestly with my close friends about it of like, hey, we're not even there yet, but this is making me anxious as fuck. Like so anxious. I'm like, do I even want kids? I just want friends. I don't even need kids. So it's like, but like, it's that's the level of insecurity I have sometimes. So like, we're processing that. We're talking about it, making space for it.
Yeah.
But that includes like moving, getting married, starting dating, like name the change. It's happening. Make sure that you're connecting with your close people and being like, hey, if I'm not showing up for you the way you want me to, like, let's talk about it, you know? Yep. And then And with that, I think like sharing expectations and like being able to talk about those things when it comes up. Like, you know, I do have a friend. He can be really flaky, love him to death. Most of the time it's fine because it's an invitation to a bigger thing. But when it's going to be like a one-on-one or smaller hang, I'm like, hey, this is really important. I will be disappointed if you do not come. Like, I need you to know that this one matters. Like a lot of the times I'm like, yeah, no worries. Stuff comes up. Who cares? But sometimes I do need you to show up. And so I'm going to try and communicate that so that you know, like, okay, this is the time it matters. The other thing I would say with transitions is mental health stuff. Like we all go through shit. Some people are living with chronic illnesses. Some people have ongoing mental health stuff that they're dealing with. Like those are real. And this is not at all meant to belittle how much effort it takes to maintain friends when you're going through all that stuff. But you do have to communicate with your friends that you're going through that stuff. Yes. They do not know. They cannot read your mind. And they're only going to check in on you so much because at some point, if you're not telling them what's going on or you're not being open or honest, like it is just rejecting them. Like that's how they're perceiving it. And I think just taking that seriously, that like, again, it's not your fault that you're going through this and no one's going to judge you for it, but you just got to let people know, like, we want to be there for you. And I wish I had been better at communicating that stuff last year with some of my friends that I'm like, hey, like, I don't have a lot of capacity. I'm saying no to your invitations, but like, thank you for inviting me. Please keep inviting me. I do want to come. And I said that to a couple people, but I wish I had been more honest and direct with a few others that like, it's not a good time, but like, thank you. I care about you. I want to be there. Please keep inviting me. Like I'm going to show up when I'm out of this season. And that feels risky, but I think having the honest conversation is good. Yeah, I've learned as well. Honesty is everything. Honesty is the key. And I think that at some point, it's so funny because as kids, we were like brutally honest and then we were shamed into being like dishonest. And now we're kind of, as you get older, you're trying to unlearn that like honesty is not the problem. It's about like how you're framing your honesty and like, you know, just also, again, like you're reminding people that like, it's like, I love you. I appreciate you. I appreciate this. I'm not in the place. But like, keep inviting me, keep knowing that, like, know that like what I'm saying to you is truth. Because that's the other thing. I think my mom, she's a self-proclaimed Columbo. She's always trying to like decipher what people are saying. And I'm like, sometimes people are just saying what they're saying. Yeah. And at least that's what it should be. Like it shouldn't have to be playing games. It shouldn't have to be deciphering. It should just be like straight up, like, you know, this is how I'm feeling. And like, if I'm turning down your invitation, I'm not turning it down because I'm secretly mad at you. It's because I don't have the capacity right now and I love you. And please take that as face value. Yeah. And we can't control other people. Like that's the other big thing when it comes to all relationships, right? Like we can't control the other person. So I think some of it is recognizing like, what are your values in friendship? Like I've shared some of mine today, like commitment and intimacy and initiating and reciprocity and all that kind of stuff, emotional availability. So like not everyone's going to be able to do that. And that is okay. And I cannot make other people do that. I can't make other people want to do that or care about it. And so there is some acceptance that no matter how well you frame things, how generous and gracious and honest you are, shit can still blow up in your face. That is real. And like, I don't want to make it sound like, oh, it's so simple if you're just like a direct communicator. Like, totally. No, we've had our issues. Yeah. But I would rather do that and find the people who can hang than not do that, suppress parts of myself, try to fit in it, like do all that kind of like, I'm not playing those games anymore. Like I never really did play those games that much because again, the kind of neurospicy I am, I'm just going to be like, blah, 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 this is where I am. But like even the times that I did try to do that, especially in ministry, like we're done. Like, I don't have time for that. Like, I want to be who I am, love for who I am, and I want to love people for who they are and find the ones that we can be in these like compatible relationships with.
Yeah. And like not being afraid if you and someone aren't compatible. I often find that like, because we're so stressed about friendships, we suppress those parts of ourselves because we're just like, I need this person to be my friend right now. And like, again, it goes back to that trusting. It's like, you will find your people. And suppressing yourself does not allow you to do that authentically. So trust that you will find your people.
Yeah. And you want people who love you authentically for your authentic self.
Yes, I love it. Oh my goodness. Okay. So when we close out the episode, I have two things. So first is, where can people connect with you if they want to learn more about you, what you do, maybe schedule a session or something? Where can people connect further with you?
Yeah. So my Instagram is Human Therapist, because I tell my partner he's my favorite human. So that's HOOMAN therapist. Do not judge me. I am not trying to become a therapy influencer. This is just occasionally I have good ideas and I drop them there. So I'm not on it all the time. I do try to check my messages fairly frequently right now, but it's not very sexy. That's all I'm going to say. It's a little rough and ready, but I'm just showing up authentically and lazily. It really is. I used to work in marketing and PR and stuff, and I just am not putting in the same effort on this Instagram. So
my God.
That's where we're at.
Yeah. I feel like everyone is just we're in this season, like as a culture where we're just like, I ain't got time. It's just me and myself, me and my authentic self.
Yep. So I'm Human Therapist on Instagram, and then keep your eyes out on there. We do have a podcast coming out sometime in the fall called It's Giving Human, where my co-host Darren and I are going to be talking about all kinds of topics from friendship, dating, work, hobbies, etc., and how to live life with intentionality. Just word of the day. So yeah, how do we build lives we enjoy? How do we live out our values? What does that look like as he and I are navigating like different seasons of life and just like talking about this stuff? So this is actually a project for joy for us. If you listen, cool. But it was really, we wanted to explore doing this together as a project and just having fun, enjoying our friendship, enjoying talking about this stuff. And some of our friends have said they really like how we, specifically the two of us, talk and share about these things. So, if you want to give us a listen, coming sometime in 2024.
And we will definitely let the people know when it's out. You let me know, we drop it.
All right. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you. But you don't have to listen if you don't want to. It's totally
No. You must listen.
I'm a very secure person. I don't know what you're talking about. And I think that's part of where I'm at in life. Is like, how do we just do more stuff that we think would be fun and not caring what everyone else is going to think about it? So
Yeah, I find that in my 20s, I was just kind of looking for the thing that was going to make me pop off. Because again, it's that feeling of like, I'm looking for value outside of myself. Yeah. And now I'm just kind of like, I'm just doing it. If this pops off, great. Love that for me. But also like, I get so much joy out of having these conversations with people that like this to me it's the true value. Like if I get nothing more than like getting to meet new people, make new friends, have deeper conversations, like it's a win. So.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is awesome. And I think the model that you're setting actually gives me a lot of hope for starting a podcast. So this is like a very cool conversation. I'm very thankful to have been here.
I love it. Okay, so the last thing that we do to close out is this game called Scroll, Double Tap, DM, which is very similar to Kill, Fuck, Marry. Mm-hmm. And so scrolling is basically like, I'm good. Double tapping is like, oh, your vibe is cool. I'm digging it. And then DM is like, oh, I feel that connection. Like, we got to go deeper with this. And so because you mentioned that you are a Office, Parks and Rec girly. Mm-hmm. So funny too, because I find that like if you're a fan of Michael Schur, Greg Daniels' work, that you're either like, yeah, I like both, but I like Parks a little more, or yeah, I like both, but I like The Office a little more. And so, because I know that you're a little more into Parks, but I'm also a little more into The Office. So I just, that tickled me so much.
I love it.
So for our Scroll, Double Tap, DM options, I thought it would be appropriate to do Leslie's Gal Pals from Parks and Rec.
All right.
So we have April, Anne, and Donna.
Shit. This is hard. Okay. Man, and there's like different seasons, so there's different versions. Okay, this sounds so bad. I'm gonna scroll past on Anne. I do think we got through that whole arc in Parks and Rec, like a whole person. She's lovely, but like least interesting to me. So we're gonna scroll past Anne. I'm so sorry, Anne. You're amazing. Probably double tap Donna. I think that like she has some sneaky secret wisdom. She's super fun. I think we could hang and have a good time. I also just love that she's like a no nonsense, but like when she asked Leslie Knope, like, are you going to raise taxes? And Leslie says she can't guarantee. And she's like, until you can tell me that, like, I'm not voting for you. I was like, all right, Donna, I appreciate the honesty. We could definitely hang. And I want to marry April. So that would be the one. I think, especially her arc, like, to be honest, I don't think April and I would have been friends early on because that was a hard nut to crack. Although those are my favorite clients. Like when you crack a client, like that's so much fun when they like open up. So I think April, though, she's so fun and zany and is one of the characters on there who's always who she is. Like, I think that's one of the things I admire most about April. So yeah, that's what I'm going to say.
We're the same person because that was exactly my order. Exactly. I'm obsessed with April. Her dark moodiness is like, I find her just so fascinating. But yeah, she's like unapologetically real in a way that I just like really vibe with. Donna, again, her like no nonsense wisdom, like she's got a lot of depth there, but maybe I'm not fully there yet to understand it. So I'm like, I'll give you a like for now. And then with Anne, it's so funny that like Rashida Jones, when she was Karen in The Office, like I would be DMing Karen to talk about how Jim wasn't shit.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Anne, like out of my options, it's hard to go with Anne because Anne, I don't feel like they gave her enough.
She has more personality in the earlier seasons, and then she really does just kind of become like the supportive best friend, which is fine. I think that's a great role to have on TV, but I think it is just a little less engaging. Also, Donna, treat yourself. Like, let's go. Let's go. Like, that is, I text that to my friends like literally all the time. It's like, let's go treat ourselves. Let's go do something.
Yeah. How can you not? I mean, with an ethos like that, it's like,
honestly, okay. Yeah. She's legit.
Yeah. Oh, Bri, I enjoyed this conversation so much. Also, Bri has the most movie star name. Bri, you got to tell us your whole name. You got to say your whole name for us.
So it's Brianna Angele, and I go by Bri. So it's Bri Angele most of the time.
Bri Angele. Oh my gosh. I need it on a billboard. I need it on a movie poster. Like you won the best name. Like,
thank you. I picked it out. So it was Angele was my middle name. So it's the name I've had my whole life. And my last name's changed through marriage. And when I was separating, I was like, what's going to be my forever name? And this is what we landed on. So Angele's a family name. It's passed through the French side of my family, through the women in my family. So I picked a matriarchal name, and I'm a feminist, so but thank you. I put a lot of thought into it, so I appreciate that.
Oh my gosh, killed the game.
God, if only I could stop being intentional and calm the fuck down, but
we're going to get there. It's a process. But loved having you.
Thank you for having me. This was so fun. I think that this podcast is so needed. I do think people are really lonely. They're struggling to talk about friends. My therapist and I were actually talking about how, we talk about the Gottmans a lot when it comes to dating and romance. They're awesome. They do a ton of research. And she was like, who's the Gottman of friendship? And like, we couldn't think of anybody. And so we're like, we need to be cultivating spaces where we're having these conversations. And I think you're killing it. So this was super fun. Thank you for having me. Please have me back.
Oh my God, yes. There's so much more there to talk about. So you will not be a stranger to this podcast, okay?
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I'm happy to cheer you on. I do think this is really needed, and I look forward to hearing more of your conversations with other folks.
Loved getting to talk to Bri. It was such a treat. And I so look forward to having her back for future episodes. If there's anything that Bri has talked about in her background that you are excited to hear her come back and talk about, definitely let me know on social media, or you can let me know in the exclusive Real Talk Friend Therapy Facebook group. We do have a Facebook group. The link to that is in the show notes. It is a space where if you want to commune with other listeners or with myself, you want to share thoughts and revelations from the episode, episodes, definitely feel free to join us there, as well as our Patreon. And if you join us on Patreon, that's where you will find bonus content, exclusive group chats, and lots of other fun bonusy things. So that's all I have for you this week, besties. Much love, and your girl is out. Loving Real Talk Friend Therapy? Of course you are. So don't forget to show us some love with a 5-star review wherever you are listening, and to join our Patreon to unlock bonus recordings, videos, private chats, and more.